Howdy, y'all. It's Curious Raven. We are on day 8 of Advent. Today is a little different. Is actually 2 creepypasta stories. My guest is Booze and Booze. Go check him out. He's really cool. I'll leave his links down below. The first story I will be reading, and it is by Noble Climb. It is called I'm the Rich Guy Families Pay to Hang Their Christmas Decorations. I'm never going back to the Dumont house. 10 months out of the year, I paint houses. During the holidays, I decorate them. Rich families pay my team top dollar to hang lights on their mansions. But money isn't everything. And after this year, I'm never going back to the Dumont house. Every town has its haunted house. This is ours. While the origin story varied from suicidal stockbrokers to tragic holiday accidents, everyone agreed the place was haunted. Each year, when the old widower calls, we draw straws. The 2 losers get stuck with the job. This year, it was Marco and I. We pulled up to the old Victorian and set our sights on the home's 4-story turret looming over the property. Well, start from the top and work down, I reasoned. Marco held the ladder and I started up with the strand of lights. The ladder flexed underneath each step. I tried not to look down. As I passed the highest window, I caught a glimpse of movement between the curtains. Probably Dumont, checking on my progress. I reached up for the gutter with a plastic clip in my hand. The ladder jerked back from the house, almost throwing me off. "Get!" Marco yelled below. I tried to throw my body weight forward to avoid the point of no return. When the ladder would topple over backward, despite the effort, I felt myself moving forward away from the eaves. By chance, I looked downward, and what I saw made my blood turn cold. The window I had passed on my climb was no longer closed. A woman leaned out of the opening, clutching at the side rails. Her golden hair was stained a dark color on one side where it was matted to her head. She looked up at me with an expression of twisted contempt as she pushed again, sending me further from the house. The ladder came a little closer to toppling. Before teetering back towards the turret, the woman adjusted her stance. I immediately realized what she was doing. She was going to try pushing me sideways where Marco couldn't stabilize the ladder. Before she could, a second figure, a man in blue coveralls and a yellow cap, shoved her through the open window before slamming the sash with a loud thud. Her form evaporated into a mist as soon as her entire body left the house. The ladder clattered back against the building, leaving me clinging to the rungs with sweaty palms and a hammering heart. Back on the ground, Dumont offered me an apology and a wad of cash to keep quiet about what I saw. I refused both. Marco and I packed up our gear and left without a word. As we pulled out of the drive, I looked back up at the window. It had opened again. The same woman stared down at me, bony fingers curled around the sill. The story that Bows and Bows is going to read is written by Special Donut 1228, and it is called Something is Wrong with Mom.
I've always been really close to my mother. She's always been the one there for me when nobody else was. She doesn't have a mean bone inside her body. We text or call each other every day, and for a few days, she was expressing that she'd been feeling a little under the weather. So I thought I would surprise her by showing up randomly, since we don't live that far apart. This isn't unusual for me since she loves when I stop by, just to chat and visit. She always gives me the biggest hug when I walk through the door. As always, she asks if I'm hungry, offers to make me something to eat. But I'd just eaten, so I declined. Told her I just wanted to hang out and talk, especially since she's been feeling bad for a few days. I could tell she had a bit of a cough and some congestion, but otherwise, she seemed her normal self. She was never the type to be able to sit still, so, per usual, she was up and running around doing chores, despite the coughing and making conversation with me. About an hour into our visit, she sets the dish down that she was washing walks over to me and continues our conversation. I thought this was odd because why would she just drop whatever she was already doing and walk over when we could hear each other just fine? I brushed it off because it's not really a big deal. At this point, I'm seated on the couch and she's standing in front of me. We continue to chat, just talking about life and family and everything else. I started to notice at this point that she was looking more unwell as the conversation went on. Her gaze became more distant. She was looking at me, but it was more like she was looking through me. I'm a bit of a worrier, so I tend to jump to the worst conclusions on a moment's notice. I try to just continue with our conversation, hoping what I was seeing was just in my mind, or some kind of trick of my imagination, just like I've experienced so many times before. But at this point, there was no doubt in my mind that something was wrong. Her arms began to just dangle beside her body. She was blankly staring. Not necessarily at me, but through me, and to something beyond. I really started to get worried, frantically asking her what's wrong, if she's okay. She never responded. Just that blank stare with her arms dangling and glassy eyes fixated on something that I had no perception of. I really tried at this point to keep my cool, but I was more worried by the second. I started to feel better, because moments after, she started some movement. My relief quickly went away when I noticed her only movement was slowly scanning her head down my body and grinning heavily. I tried to keep talking to her, but all she was doing was very stoically scanning me with her head and smiling. The more she smiled, the more disoriented her features became. And at this point, she became almost angry, I guess. Her breathing got very intense and her demeanor was almost evil, unlike anything that was familiar to her. She looked back up at me and I noticed whatever I was looking at was not my mother anymore. Her eyes were nothing but white. Her skin had aged terribly. Her smile was unlike anything I've ever seen her do before. Her mouth opened and let out a sound unlike anything I've heard before. The best I can describe it as is a growl, a scream, hiss, and spit, and everything else in between. This wasn't my mother, at least not anymore. I got up as quickly as I possibly could and made a run for the closest space I thought I could be safe. I'm now currently stuck in a locked bathroom. I hear her scratching at the door. I see now why she had been feeling under the weather. I am no longer a mama's boy.
All right, those are the last stories for today. There's only two, but I hope y'all enjoyed them. This video might be a little bit shorter than others. I love y'all so much. Thank you so much to Booze and Booze for coming on my channel and being a guest here for the first time. So please go show him some love. I will see y'all tomorrow for day 9. But until then, remember, it's scary out there. Please like and subscribe.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross